Hello there, happy Friday, and welcome to today's content. Thank you for tuning in and joining this community and sharing resources in trying to impact your life and possibly the lives of others around you. It's so wonderful to have you back for another book recommendation for mental health, and today's video will be on non-fiction. This is a classic collector's edition. I recommend this to everyone at some point in your life. Please read this book. You can look at this book if you're going through a lack of meaning in your life, you're feeling quite stuck, or you're feeling at a wit's end in your life at some point that you can't really continue on. There's something in your life that you're feeling there's a vacuum. So this is the book to start you on that journey. Of course, not as a substitution for real intervention with a mental health professional, but something to add along onto your journey. Today's book is none other than Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist during the time of World War II and the concentration camp era. He was sent with his family to the concentration camp and later landed up in Auschwitz. But I'm going to be giving some brief background information that does not appear largely in the book, but just to give you an idea. So Frankl was a big supporter of Freud, Sigmund Freud, and wrote to him in around 1915 and sent some of his own theories, and Freud published it in the Psychoanalytic Journal. Viktor Frankl was also a big fan of Alfred Adler, who was the second school of thought of psychotherapy after psychoanalysis. And Alfred Adler was something that was influencing him. But Viktor Frankl, as a psychiatrist, started to look at his own theory of finding meaning in life, and was one of the major pioneers into what we now know as today existential psychotherapy, meaning making. That's pretty much in a nutshell. It's much deeper than what I'm saying, but it just gives you a glimpse into it, which we can perhaps unpack much deeper into the proponents of what existential psychotherapy is in practice and in application. So during that time, tensions were escalating during those periods in Europe, and he started to contribute in terms of papers, in terms of helping professionals in neurology departments, in hospitals, and seeing patients. And by around 1940, he was head of neurology, or the neurology department in a hospital in Europe, and he would falsify documents to save mentally ill patients so they wouldn't be euthanized by the Nazis. He also married a beautiful nurse, and they were forced by the Nazis to abort the child. So absolutely such harsh, cruel, brutal conditions already that he had to contend with, him and his family, and being persecuted, and he's still looking for meaning. Later, his family was sent to the concentration camps and landed in Auschwitz, and he was granted amnesty because of his position in psychiatry and neurology, and he declined it because he didn't want to abandon specifically his parents. He wanted to go in as loyalty and camaraderie to his family. That is so incredible. And during his time in the camps, he asked the prison guards if they could please not destroy his manuscript that he was theorizing. So the book that you are potentially going to be holding in your hands, he was theorizing and looking at, especially with his theory of existentialism that he wanted to contribute towards. He asked the guards to please not destroy it because he had lost so much, and this was something that could potentially help people, and he asked them not to destroy it, and they did. So he lost absolutely everything. When we think about times where we've lost a lot, and we think about stories like this, it really, not to be paling in comparison, but to look at really what is meaningful in when we're stripped of absolutely everything that we know of in terms of meaning and material goods, or things that bring us comfort. It just makes one think, really, really think. So the book is divided into two parts. So we've got the first aspect, which is his observations of what he saw in the camps. And he split the camps into two types of prisoners. The ones that lost all hope, and the ones that found no meaning in their suffering and couldn't find a will or a hope to carry on, to continue. He found that they spiritually were going to die. They weren't going to make it. There was something about that loss of will, a loss of sense of hope that they couldn't continue. There was no motivation to continue. And then he found the other prisoners that did find a sense of meaning in their suffering, or a sense of hope, of something to look forward to. Often it was imagining food because they were so deprived of food, or imagining that they would reunite with other family members because they didn't know the fate of other family members at other camps, that kept those prisoners going into be able to see that there is a way out of this. There's a way to regroup and a way to continue life with a shared sense of meaning and hope in terms of your circumstances. Viktor Frankl believed that instead of what Freud believed in, looking for a theory of pursuing pleasure, especially he had a very psychosexual model, and Alfred Adler he believed that people were looking for power. Viktor Frankl believes that we're looking for meaning, right? And so he believes that in order to get through suffering, we have to find meaning in it. So at all times of our lives, we're going to go through what he terms the existential vacuum. So that vacuum of nothingness, of feeling like at times, what's the point of life? Like the nihilists believe that nothing is meaningful. So how do we find meaning in our lives? It's all relative to us. Nobody can give you that meaning. You have to go and find it. So now I'm going to bring up a couple of quotes that I have here from the book that we're going to go through and discuss. Okay, so the first quote is, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. But there was no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness that a man had the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior." This is so pertinent to all aspects of people's lives today even, is that often people will say, is my reaction abnormal? And we always have to look in context if the situation that created the reaction is normal or abnormal, and that will be your answer. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. No one can become fully aware of the very essence of another human being unless he loves him. By his love, he is enabled to see the essential traits and features in the beloved person, and even more, he sees that which is potential in him, which is not yet actualized, but yet ought to be actualized. Furthermore, by his love, the loving person enables the beloved person to actualize these potentialities. By making him aware of what he can be and what he should become, he makes these potentialities come true. No man should judge unless he asks himself in absolute honesty whether in a similar situation he might not have done the same. It did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life, daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Then this one is a very popular quote. This is very repeated all over. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So that's a lot of what we speak about releasing control of things we cannot control, people, events, circumstances, but in reframing our attitudes to how we react to circumstances and find meaning in suffering. So Frankl, like many existentialists, do believe that life is full of suffering, not prolonged suffering. There should be waves of suffering and joy and bliss in between, the paradox of life. But that in order to live a meaningful life, we have to find meaning and purpose in suffering and reframe the experience to move on from it towards growth and actualization. I hope that you guys do get encouraged to go read this book and other books that can help you in finding who you truly are, your impact on the world, and also to believe in yourself, believe in the power of what you can do. Remember that we have the power to self-destruct or to create love, to create things that are going to build other people and communities and societies. It is our choice, and it's built by daily choices, day in and day out. However, it's not a perfect journey. Some days you're going to fall and trip, and that's part of the human experience. Okay, I wish you all the best. Have a good weekend.